Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Halloween Resurrection, Contrarians Corner.
Trick or treat, motherfuckers. It is now time for us to discuss the final entry in the Halloween franchise for us. We've talked about literally every other one on the podcast, maybe not in full episode format, but we have had a few commentary tracks, our Haddonfield Nights series, of course, and then our never-ending debate on the modern trilogy over on our Patreon page.
I think the only movie in the franchise that we haven't really devoted a decent amount of time to is the second one, which this is the same director, right?
Good one. Yeah, that was one. I know we talked about it because you're pretty high on it, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
That is a gross misrepresentation.
I couldn't remember what. There's one that you're like random. It might just be H2O, and I try to ignore that.
It is H2O. Yeah. H2O is the one that's in my top three. No,
it's in like my bottom three or bottom four.
No, I appreciate that Halloween 2 kind of picks up right where the first one ended.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. And then it just kind of goes generic. But Alex, this is really exciting for me because I am hoping that this unlocks the secret of Halloween Ends for me, right? Halloween Resurrection is the only movie that you have seen and I hadn't. And so I was like, maybe that is what I'm missing. That's why I can't fully embrace what's happening in Halloween Ends, because there's a step missing in my journey. And now I finally completed it and we're on the same level. Now our opinions matter and weigh the same.
Equally.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And I'm sorry that this had to be the final puzzle piece for you. But, at least now you get the platinum trophy, the 100% completion trophy.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm Alex. That's Julio. We are the Contrarians. We're right. You're wrong. Wrapping up at long last the Halloween franchise. And just like I mentioned, in a most curious way, as we travel back to 2002, the age of the web, the age of the net, as we are going to live stream our webcast as Michael terrorizes Haddonfield, Illinois yet again. He stops along the way to visit his sister, though. We'll get to that here momentarily. We'll also get to momentarily why the heck it is we're covering this movie. First and foremost, business to tend to. I know this is dropping a little bit later than scheduled. I was approaching death's door with a strep throat infection last week, so Julio was so gracious as to push it back so that I didn't sound like RFK on this podcast. Well, the first day I couldn't even talk, so it just would have been, gargles and Gregorian chanting over here. And
no matter how sick you were, I trust that you would have sounded more intelligent than RFK, no matter what.
Thank you. Cheryl Hines, you broke my heart. Anyway, but this is definitely the most amount of talking I've done since, so I'm going to try to put on a brave face and power through if necessary to bring forth the necessary coverage of a special appearance by Sean Patrick Thomas, amongst other things here. So Julio, first, let's address why are we covering this movie?
Well, this is a patron demand, as so many of our episodes are, and this one comes from, I don't know if this should be a surprise or this should just make perfect sense, but this one comes from patron and friend, fellow podcaster Ben from Filmbusters, somebody who shares your enthusiasm, your love for the overall Halloween franchise, and specifically the final couple of installments, the divisive ones. So is this Ben just throwing another divisive movie our way?
Since when the fuck is this movie divisive?
Well, it is not 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, Alex. So
that's true.
There are some people that like it. I think this is Ben just being funny. Everything I've heard him say in the past indicates that maybe he enjoys this movie, but I'm pretty sure that he knows it's not top shelf Halloween. And I think that he knows, because you've been very vocal about how you feel about this. He knows that how you feel about Halloween Resurrection. So maybe this is just his experiment. He's trying to create another fracture in Contrarians HQ because he knows that maybe I will like it. Just the same way that I like the Friday 13, 2009 remake. And you hate it. Maybe this is another instance where I just appreciate everything that the filmmakers were going for. I'm not knee deep or even neck deep in the franchise, so I can just be a lot more open-minded about it.
Look, I will say this now. We're not going to struggle for conversation points here. This isn't a movie that, we're going to be trying to really just pull the taffy as thin as possible. Whereas the real talk portion of this too, as it seems with every single Halloween installment, will definitely be interesting. So you'll want to stick around for that, because much like, any of these kind of in-betweeners, 4, 5, 6, H2O and this, the backstory's pretty fascinating. And Busta Rhymes did appear on Thursday Night SmackDown the night before this came out to promote the movie, and they even got The Rock to say Halloween Resurrection in movie theaters tomorrow. So there's a lot to discuss. But first, we got to break this motherfucker down. And before we do so, we need to cover the fact that, yes, it is not 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It sits at a... Look, for this movie, I'm going to say a proud and tall 10%. A 24% rating on the popcorn meter, based on 50,000 plus submitted reviews. So a sad green popcorn bucket that's been tipped over. Critical consensus: the only thing this tired slasher flick may resurrect is nostalgia for when the genre was still fresh and scary. Well, hold on now, because I would argue that this took the most fresh approach to any of them. They introduced the internet to Michael Myers.
Finally. We've been waiting for something new in the franchise. It feels like the franchise had been struggling to replace Dr. Loomis with something. And the internet was the key.
That's hilarious. I hadn't even thought about that. Just like the fucking Internet Explorer browser, like the icon with a trench coat over it and a fucking revolver. He clicked 6 times.
Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
All right, Julio, 10%. We're having our fun here. But what were the critics saying about this?
A lot of green splotches. To be fair, this is not a whole lot of reviews. 70, I think, total. Maybe a little over 70. So compared to some of the other Halloween entries, this is not, the critics were not flocking to their computers to enter the reviews. But still, here's a handful of rotten quotes. We're going to start with David Gonzalez from the Cinematic Reel, who says, Halloween Resurrection is an embarrassment to a franchise that I hold near and dear to my heart. A franchise that has entertained viewers for the past 40 years, and its fans deserved more than this film. This guy sounds like you when you're talking about the Halloween franchise. He took it personally, near and dear to his heart.
It's definitely up there with... I think 5 is the other one that people find like offensive. And, we did our commentary track on 5 and it is really bad, but I have a nostalgia for that movie that's probably misguided. But these are the two that folks talk about in that way of like, how dare they?
I will bring up a point that I brought up in the very recently mentioned Friday 13, 2009 remake. And that is that maybe... for David Gonzalez and for other people that were just so deeply hurt by Halloween Resurrection, maybe that was supposed to be a sign that it was time for them to move on, or rather that the franchise had moved on from them and it was catering to a new audience. It's instead of writing the whole paragraph where you're like, oh, woe is me and I'm hurt, you just say, oh, not for me anymore. And then you step aside, which is what we try to do when it comes to Star Wars these days.
Yep.
Just let them do what they want. I will not be paying. Next, Eugene Novikov from Film Blather says, the movie is like a year late for tapping into a reality TV obsession and even tardier for exploiting the novelty of the, in quotation marks, webcast. Do you think the quotations mark there indicate that Eugene was a little skeptical about the longevity of the webcast as a thing?
Dude, that is one of the funny parts about this movie is that, you know, you could watch the original Halloween and be like, and it doesn't age as poorly as this does. It's like, God, look at the resolution on those webcams. Come on, man. What the fuck are these guys doing?
But Alex, I mean, we have true crime enthusiasts, we have reality TV, we have streaming superstars. I mean, all the basic elements. Yeah, the aesthetics may have changed, but the basic elements at play in this story,
ahead of its time.
They're still at play today. Yeah, I mean, you could remake this same script, tweak it a little bit, but it would play in 2025. It's still everything, you know.
You could for real, like Instagram Live or some shit.
Yeah. It would be like a live stream for The Cure. You know, it would be on Twitch.
That's the next step.
Next, Audrey Rock Richardson from Totally Transcript Bulletin, Utah, says Resurrection has the dubious distinction of being a really bad imitation of the really bad Blair Witch Project. Shots fired. What? Alex, Audrey is saying Blair Witch Project is really bad, and this movie, Halloween Resurrection, is trying to copy it, therefore it's also bad.
Dude, that person, if they're still... I imagine that's a contemporary review. So now I'm just picturing that person who wrote it. You know, we're 3 years removed from the Blair Witch. Every review they've written since then has just found a way to throw a stray at the Blair Witch Project.
Except for the Blair Witch sequels.
Yes. Vastly superior to the original. Blair Witch Project fucking rules. And I mean, yeah, we were still so close in proximity, and even to this day, any shot of a white girl at night with the camera lighting her face, you know, from underneath, you're immediately gonna think of Blair Witch Project. So
not enough snot running down the nose for me to really make that connection.
I know I'm granting a lot of creative license there, but it doesn't matter because that review can go pack sand.
We're going to close with Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly. He says, comes closer to comatainment. And that's a reference to Busta Rhymes' production company, right?
Mm-hmm. Dangertainment.
Yeah. I don't know. Comatainment would imply that you are bored while watching this movie. And I think that you may be appalled, cringing while you watch it if it's not your thing. But I don't know that you could be bored. There's so much stuff constantly happening, and it is such a time capsule, I think, like you were saying, of a time when certain internet trends were just popping up, that how can you not enjoy it, at least on that sense? And the nostalgia factor. It's like, oh, we used to be so innocent back then. Mm-hmm. So no, Owen, not a comatainment back then, definitely not now either. But those are the quotes, Alex. Let's go to Contrarians Corner.
You've heard of the tunnel. The one we all go through sooner or later.
All right. This is a Miramax Dimension film. Obviously, don't miss who was behind those, but I do miss that dancing little Dimension logo that would come across the screen that I am immediately transported to my childhood home when I see that. And in most cases, the track that immediately plays in my head is Drew Barrymore answering the phone at the beginning of Scream. But in this case, we kick in with a pretty good version of the Halloween theme, a bit of a different one. And one of the only times we actually hear it in this movie. But a good opening. Busta Rhymes getting first billing. It had been years since I had seen this. In my mind, Tyra Banks got first billing. We'll talk about Tyra here in a bit.
Busta's agent was working harder.
All bullshit aside, Busta works much harder in this movie than Tyra Banks does, so I'm fine with him getting first billing. And the Freddy, is that his name? He's arguably the most compelling character in this movie. So
if anybody in this movie is going to get an Embry, it would be Busta Rhymes.
Because the effort level, not necessarily the results, the effort level.
Yes.
Busta gets first billing. The theme song sounds good as my notes here. I joked about this earlier, Julio. It seemed to maybe go over your head, but Sean Patrick Thomas, his billing is a special appearance by. It was so weird. And it's like, this isn't.
Okay, tell me who this guy is, because I like the name sounds familiar, but he's not Powder, right?
He is. I think the thing he would most be known for would be Save the Last Dance, that movie with Julia Stiles.
Okay.
He was the male lead in that, and he was also in Barbershop.
I know who
which
he is
where
now.
I know him
Okay,
from.
he's a big character here. He makes it more than halfway through the movie, right?
That's the point. This isn't a 22-minute sitcom. Like, what is the negotiation? Special appearance by Sean Patrick Thomas. So
are you saying that Sean Patrick Thomas's agent was working even harder than Busta Rhymes's?
dude, that's part of me just started thinking like Sean Patrick Thomas thought he was going to get top billing because of the cast in this, so to speak. He, coming off of Save the Last Dance, would definitely have been the biggest name. We got the Tara Reid's boyfriend from American Pie.
I was about to say, wouldn't you say that's a bigger movie? Not because of him, though. So I guess that's
no, yeah, he's definitely not the star of that. Point being, I imagine there was some sort of discussion of, well, we were under the impression we were going to be first billed, so we need something to call out that our boys in this movie. It's very, very strange. And also because it's not one of those things you can miss, because it's not like the credits are playing over action. It's just a black screen with the credits coming up. It's we've had fun with our Halloween credits before because remember, and introducing Paul Stephen Rudd as Tommy Doyle.
Can you just imagine like in Moneyball, like those phone calls where Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill, they're discussing and then they call somebody and they hung up, and it's just like these very tense negotiations. That was whoever was in charge of the credits for Halloween Resurrection, just on the phone with Busta Rhymes' agents, Sean Patrick Thomas's agents, Jamie Lee Curtis's agents.
They're doing that thing where, they'd cup the mic on the phone and look up and just shake their head no and don't say anything. Like, they're not budging. And then Brad Pitt stands up. All right.
The mouthing, special appearance.
That's it. That's final offer. Special appearance by. Then you get, of course, the Jonah Hill reaction and celebration. So we got a special appearance by, we got with Tyra Banks and Jamie Lee Curtis. Julio, I want you to explain to me what Halloween Resurrection, or how Halloween Resurrection retcons the ending of Halloween H2O, which, keep in mind, for those who have seen Halloween H2O, or those who haven't, I should say, the end of that movie is Jamie Lee Curtis chops off Michael Myers' head with an axe. He is decapitated to end the movie. Julio, how does this circumvent that?
In all fairness, let's remember that most Halloween movies end with Michael Myers appearing to die, right? Specifically, which one's the one where he gets just shot a gazillion times? 4?
4, and he falls down like that mine shaft.
Right. So let's not act like Halloween Resurrection is the first movie that pulled a wild reversal. This explanation makes a lot more sense than whatever Halloween 5 does to bring Michael Myers back. Right?
Voodoo?
Yes. And I appreciate also that they take their time. They gave us a full short film, basically, that ties up the loose ends, resets the board, and then sends us off into the new adventure. Man, it is a damn shame that I already knew what was going to happen, right? When we ended Haddonfield Nights, I think I told you, just spoil it for me because I'm never watching Halloween Resurrection. So I knew what the explanation was. There's still this sort of awe-inspiring gusto, I guess, to watching it happen in front of your eyes, where they explain that at some point Michael Myers pulled a switcheroo, and so whoever the paramedic that was checking on him when he was dead at the end of Halloween H2O, Michael wasn't dead, so he grabbed him, stripped him of his clothes, they changed clothes and put the mask on him. Then when at the end of H2O, Jamie Lee Curtis drives away with what she thinks is the body of Michael Myers, instead she's driving away with the body of a poor paramedic that can't speak because Michael Myers crushed his larynx.
Mm-hmm. You haven't lost me yet. Keep going.
And then at the end...
Not you, Julio. I'm sorry. I was talking about the writers of this movie.
At the end of the movie, when she decapitates she thinks is Michael Myers with an axe. Instead, she's decapitating the paramedic.
And Michael is just roaming free around the crime scene in the paramedic's jumpsuit, but he's also carrying his knife with him just to be safe.
So this leads us to Jamie Lee Curtis being imprisoned. I mean, it's a mental institution, but still, like, she's not allowed to be out and about. She's a danger to society. This makes sense, Alex. Like, the explanation may be a little out there, but by Halloween standards, it's solid, I guess. And then the repercussions, I think, are more realistic than your average Halloween consequence. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. She's confined to a padded cell and is on a steady diet of meds that just kind of, she hasn't spoken in years, as the nurse tells us. Because, yeah, she was not just responsible for a man's death, but a brutal one at that.
Oh my God, she killed the wrong person.
So we learn quickly that she's not actually been taking her meds. The nurse has set a scene for us that she's, medicated to the point of just comatose, like a living comatose. But we see that she's been siphoning off her meds to the side and is still very, Laurie. It's actually a little bit of a preview of what we'll come to see in the 2018, the modern trilogy, of how resourceful she is with all these traps and shit. Because at some point, she's found time to go up on the roof and apparently like test and perfect this Rube Goldberg thing she's got going on up there. So if Michael ever shows up, she knows what to do.
She was probably testing it on some of the other patients in there. They just don't know any better.
We meet one of the patients who's like this fucking serial killer super fan. Why, you might ask? Just put that in your back pocket and hold on to it for just a moment.
Do you remember when you watched this the first time? Because I don't know how aware you were of how the opening credits work, but you saw and Jamie Lee Curtis. So then when you're watching this opening short film, did you kind of get a feeling that this was all we were going to get from her?
Dude, that broke quick on the internet that she dies in like the first 15 minutes of the movie.
That bummed you out when you heard about it?
I didn't care because remember I'd already like...
Oh, that's right. You're one of those rare individuals that hates...
I was already a contrarian that, I didn't like H2O.
Yeah.
Because, and we'll obviously get more into this in real talk, but there was a lot of very public... bickering is not the word, but basically it was known the lengths that, Dimension had to go to get Jamie Lee in this movie. And then when she was in it, it was kind of already public knowledge that she just would be in it. So she got killed off specifically just for that purpose. So that part of it wasn't too surprising. Watching it this time, though, what was surprising and made me audibly emote is when Michael breaks into the sanitarium, when he kills one of the guards, he does the fucking H2O descent.
Yes.
Remember how hard we laughed at that in H2O? He breaks out, dusts off a classic here for us.
Yeah, they made it canon. It was like, now this is a move that he does. It's not just the one off from H2O. This is something that I was kind of disappointed that he didn't do it again when we were in the actual story in the Myers house. But I guess, maybe they thought that they were starting a trend, and then the next Halloween movie will also feature one time where he does it. It's pretty awesome.
So yeah, he bursts into Laurie's room, and I know this means nothing to you, Julio, but he does like the Jason walk into the room where he breaks through the door just shatters all around him.
Yeah.
Like Michael doesn't do that shit. But anyway.
He's tired of this shit, Alex. It's been like 8 movies.
He wants it to end. It's like, how many fucking masks I've had to wear to get to this point? I just want this to be over already. So he chases Laurie up to the rooftop where she, puts her trap into motion and incapacitates Michael. However, she fears killing the wrong person again, and it gets the better of her as she goes to take off the mask and check that it's truly Michael. When she attempts to remove the mask to confirm his identity, Michael stabs and throws her off the roof to her death. Not before, Julio, one of the more infamous moments in the Halloween franchise. What happens here?
One of the most titillating, I hope. They share a passionate kiss through the mask, which I guess is what makes it okay, right? There's no tongue. It's just lips against mask from 2 siblings, depending on the timeline. Not to go back to Star Wars, but it's Luke and Leia kissing in Empire Strikes Back.
You gotta have the moment of Jamie Lee like looking off and like something's not right here.
It's Leah Thompson and Michael J. Fox kissing Back to the Future. She's like, I felt like I was kissing my brother. It's the Alien 3 ending, right, Alex? She falls to her death and we see her like in slow motion. And
good call.
I have expected the chest burster to come out.
Good call. So the inmate that I mentioned earlier is obsessed with serial killers. For some reason here, Michael, his heart grew 3 sizes on this day, I guess, because he killed his sister. Michael shows up to this homeboy's room here, his cell, and like Bret Hart used to do, where he would put his glasses on the little kid's head. He gives this dude his knife that he used to kill Lori. And then this dude who's obsessed with serial killers recognizes him, and he gives us the full fucking rundown. Like, it's Monday Night Football. He gives the stats where Michael went to college, defensive yards, all his body count, all that shit. And he ends his little spiel by saying, and he's back, or now he's back, something like that. And then they cut to the title card. Julio, if you know nothing else about my taste in movies, I'm a sucker for that trope of the title card not hitting until 20 minutes into the movie. Yeah. So I was very pleased with that.
I was pleased by the fact that through this final movement in the prologue, we get Michael Cam, which is something that I don't think we get in every movie, but whenever it happens in one of the Halloween entries, I just point at the screen. I go, Michael Cam, right? You get the point of view, and he's just like going around. It usually ends with a kill, but this time it ends with a kind of a passing of the torch. If I had known better, I probably would have thought that this kid that he's given the knife to was going to become the next Michael Myers. But this movie's smart enough to know that you don't pass the torch of Michael Myers. You just stay with Michael Myers. Unlike,
that's right.
Halloween Ends.
A year later, college students Sarah Moyer, Bill Woodlake, Donna Chang, Jen Zandig, Jim Morgan, and Rudy Grimes win a competition to appear on an internet reality show called Dangertainment, directed by Freddie Harris, Busta Rhymes, and Nora Winston, Tyra Banks. The students have to spend a night in Michael's abandoned childhood house in order to figure out what led him to kill. All right, so Julio, when we start this after, the title card, after we take care of business there in the first, the opening act of this, there's like this immediate computers, internet, to the point where it really does feel of its time in that, Matrix, Swordfish, which is a movie we've done in here before, that whole stylized, sleek presence of what the internet is going to bring to the world, which, man, I don't know about you, but it was so refreshing watching this, remembering a time where we thought the internet was going to like revolutionize modern time for better and make everyone like cool and savvy and have cool haircuts and shit, and really all the internet's done is just turned society into a barren wasteland.
This is the internet before it became mainly a tool for misinformation and political bullshit. This is what you see is what you get, and what you see is Michael Myers killing people. You can believe it. It's not fake. I wonder if the same kind of feeling that we get when we see the early internet here in this movie is what people, 50 years from now will get when they see how artificial intelligence is depicted in movies. They're like, oh, that's right. It hadn't taken over the world yet.
Yeah, fucking 50 years from now when the Earth basically just looks like Judge Dredd.
Yes.
And people go to movies and yeah, exactly to your point. Oh, that must have been an innocent time.
Deckard? Who's Deckard? Oh, it's my screen name.
So this is, there was that little era in the late 90s where the internet was dangerous. Like it was like, Terminator type shit. And then in the early 2000s, it was like cool. And like it was the in crowd. And, the thing about this movie is the webcast. And at this party where they watch the webcast, it's more and more people entering the room and like, what is this? This is happening right now. So having an innocent outlook on the internet, man, what a time to be alive.
Also, I guess an innocent outlook on true crime, right? But at the same time, I think that this movie very accurately portrays that a lot of true crime reporting ends up being about manipulating the facts for public consumption so that you can get people's interest. right? And we'll get into it, but basically Busta Rhymes is not just setting up cameras inside Michael Myers' house. He's setting up the cameras inside Michael Myers' house so that then he later can construct his own narrative to get people hooked on his show, which is something that so many true crime podcasts are accused of these days. You know, you can't just report the story. You have to like create a new story around it to bring it back to life. So I was watching this. I was like, man, did they have any idea that 20 years out the line, we were just going to be drowning on people like Busta Rhymes in this movie, peddling their true crime stories, their true crime narratives.
Well, also, like, I don't know if it'd be Busta or Tyra Banks in this, the people that like walk around with their webcam going, their Twitch stream like going like 24/7, you know?
Yes.
It's no, that would probably be Kid from American Pie, because he seems to be the one that's like all tech savvy and shit. He even at one point, man, you know, looking into the future, he's talking about like product placement and how we need to get sponsors for this webcast and shit.
Like, how about a pie? Can we have a pie on this table?
All right, who is our lead gal in this? It is Bianca Cashless.
It's not Gina Gershon.
Well, certainly not. There's only one of those. Kashlish. It's Kajlich. Kashlish. I'm going to go with that. Bianca Kashlish. Sarah Moyer in this. Maybe a weird thing in a horror film to cast your lead girl with someone who can't scream. That was a big thing about this actress here. She, I guess, was just either incapable of screaming, or, you know, she saw that special appearance by and was like, all right, well, I'm pulling some of my cards then. So this isn't the type of thing that you would notice, Julio, and I highly doubt you're ever going to go back and re-listen to it, but like her scream is like the same sound drop over and over and over again.
Is it her, or did they get Sean Patrick Thomas to do the scream? That's how he got the credit.
That would be awesome. Yeah, she has a hell of a dorm room in this, and I really miss the embellished college dorm room. Last time I can really remember that sticking out in a movie was Green Inferno, the room that the lead in that shares with Sky Ferreira. I'm like, an apartment that size in Austin would cost you $6,000 a month. What the hell's going on at this school?
Well, this is Haddonfield University, so, you know, they're very welcoming.
HU, man. Yeah. World renowned for its student housing and cuisine on campus.
Her best friend, Alex Katie Sackhoff. Do you know her from anything?
Mm-hmm. No,
I do, and I didn't recognize her. It's funny because I saw her name in the credits, and then so much happened that I forgot that she was in the movie. And then when she shows up, I'm like, oh, it's somebody that's trying to be Brittany Snow. And it wasn't until the movie was over that I remembered, oh, that's right, Katie Sackhoff was supposed to be in this. And I mean, it was the only character that she could have been. She is, more recently, she's been in The Mandalorian. She plays one of the other bounty hunters, but she was in 24, and I think she was one of the main characters in the Battlestar Galactica series. So she went on to have a pretty successful career. So don't let anybody tell you the Halloween Resurrection just kind of put a stop to people's dreams when they were in it.
It looks like they did an animated version of Watchmen last year that went straight to video, and she did the voice of Silk Spectre in it. She definitely has stayed busy, so good on her. She's also done some video game work as well. All right. So they're doing the reality TV style casting here for the show, and, you know, we're learning who our cast is going to be. And because it's so fresh on my brain with, you know, Tough 20 that we've been doing, Julio, the whole reality TV and all those tropes, that it kind of just seemed normal. But then I was thinking of one, you know, someone who's watching this years later, and or, you know, let's say someone's watching it in 2025 and had never seen it before. And, you know, some kid who's 15, they're like, what the fuck are they doing? It's like, yeah, that's what you did for reality TV. You had to have all these different characters, the hot chick and the nerd and the good looking guy. So it's all here.
What character is supposed to be, like, what persona? The guy that looks like Danny Masterson, who is he supposed to be? Is he the cool guy? The guy with the shades?
He's like the stoner who's just there to get laid, because as soon as they get to the house, he just stops trying to like go along with any of the shit on the, you know, the producers want from him, and he's just following that chick around. All right.
And then American Pie is a nerd.
Yeah. Sean Patrick Thomas, I think, I would say he's the good looking guy. I mean, the kid from American Pie is, you know, a charmer, but here I think he's the one for the ladies to swoon to.
And then Katie Sackhoff is the blonde, the hot blonde. And then there's like a brainy girl that actually ends up being the first one to show her boobs.
Of course. I don't see a problem.
Hey, if it ain't broke, the formula works.
So they're beginning to set up the house, and while cameras are being set up in preparation for the show, cameraman Charlie is killed by Michael, who has returned to Haddonfield. Julio, I don't know if you would have caught this or even cared, but this when he kills this camera guy, remember you see it from the point of view of like the camera facing forward.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be an homage, a tip of the hat to a movie you and I are kind of split on, Peeping Tom from 1960.
My God, that is kind of a highbrow reference for this franchise.
For this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, no shit. On Halloween night, equipped with head cameras, Sarah, Bill, Donna, Jen, Jim, and Rudy enter the house and separate into 3 groups in search for clues. And I swear to God, I laughed out loud at this. Like he's fucking Andrew Bernard kicking off, Dwight's competition against the computer for sales. Fucking Busta Rhymes lays on an air horn to signify that the games have begun.
So I was a little confused about the setup. Like it became clear as the movie went on, but did you fully understand what they were supposed to do once they got to the house?
No. I was like, what's the point of this? Because there are those things of like, survive a night in a haunted house, but they keep talking to him like they're giving him a fucking like quest to do.
Right.
And it's all this stupid shit of like find his coloring books and the idea of it. All right, here's the idea, Julio. Dr. Loomis it was his life's work that drove him literally to the grave. It drove him away from his family. It drove him to alcoholism. And, he's one of the most learned and researched children's psychologists on the planet. Drove him mad. Spending his entire, second half of his life trying to figure out what made this kid tick, what was wrong with this kid. And Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks thinks these fucking burnout college students are going to be able to figure it out in one night.
Let the dangertainment begin out.
Well, people, let's do it.
Okay, well, here's the classic mistake you're making. You're forgetting that this is a different timeline. In this timeline, Loomis died at the end of Halloween 2, right? Like he just blew up.
No, he died at the end of Halloween 6.
In this timeline? No.
Yeah, no. You're right. Because this timeline goes Halloween 2, H2O, and Resurrection.
Correct. So I mean, he didn't have time to become an alcoholic. He just died at the end of Halloween 2. But also, more importantly, Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks, they're not expecting them to solve anything. I mean, they're providing them the clues, right? And that's why it finally clicked. It made sense once it was revealed that this was all set up. That it was all fake, that Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes were planting clues that were very easy to solve and just for the benefit of the public. So it's really a commentary on kind of like the stupidity of American audiences, because somebody would just sit back, watch this webcast and go like, oh, this makes sense, right? They're not thinking, oh, well, Loomis couldn't figure out. How would these guys figure out? Instead, they're just sitting down. They're just consuming whatever Busta Rhymes is putting on the screen. And these kids, they're also thinking the same. They're under the same delusion, right? They get in there and they fancy themselves detectives and they start looking into trying to crack the code. Like, what made Michael Myers tick? And they think that they're going to find the answers in that house. I mean, it's ludicrous, but it's also fake. That's the whole point. Like, it's ludicrous, but it works in America. And that's been proven to be true as the years went on. You can just put anything on TV and there's going to be a sector of the audience that's going to believe it. They're going to buy it. They're not going to question it.
There's a line in this that you like beat me to, where the girl is asking Busta Rhymes, like, what's the point of all this? And he explains it's to be famous. And he says, being famous is the American dream.
Yep.
And like, that is literally, the little domino. Busta Rhymes saying this in this fictional Halloween Resurrection movie, the little domino that starts the big chain, and then the big domino is Jake Paul. Like, that's where it ends, So I'm giving this movie genuine credit because there are some things in this. There's lines they say that they may have not known how, prescient or actual intelligence and thought were in some of these lines of dialogue and approach to it. But yeah, I'm with you on that. Because that's all it is. In the end, is Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes just want to use the internet to get famous really quick.
Yeah, one of them, either Tyra or Busta, they also have the line, America doesn't care about reality. America doesn't want reality. What they want is manufactured appearance of reality that is on point.
You are correct.
Now, my note is Tyra Banks can't dance because while this poor cameraman is getting killed, she is distracted making a smoothie or a frappuccino or something.
All right, this is a weird thing in that I don't know if anyone listening to this is going to remember this like I do, but before like things were so easy to immediately dispute, like legends about certain individuals or celebrities, or they would say shit like the WWF, for example, would say stuff like Andre the Giant had twice as many teeth as a normal person did. And not that you necessarily believe these things, but there's always like this folklore and legend around some celebrities. I remember when I was in high school, because Tyra Banks was still like one of the top hot models. And there was something like this persistent rumor about one of the things in her contract was that you couldn't take a picture of her butt, like that it was, I don't know whatever the story was, if she didn't like her butt or, I don't fucking know. But I remember that being like lore that surrounded her. And then this movie came out and there's this scene where the camera very obviously fixates on her ass for a considerable period of time. And I remember people thinking like, oh, that's her response to that rumor about her. And so when I was watching it this time, I was just kind of like, what a fucking movie to do that in, man. Like,
I mean, it's not like she has an extensive filmography, so the options were limited.
Touche.
What's her credit? Does she get the with?
She gets with Tyra Banks, yes, sir.
All right, so there you go. We go back to the Moneyball scene where her agent is just like on the phone with Brad Pitt, and Jonah Hill mouths shot of her ass.
And then the fucking Rick Rosenthal just has a confused face, and then he looks and then he just shrugs his shoulders and throws his eyebrows up. Okay. Yeah, I like that's such a silly turn of the millennium, embedded pop culture memory that I have, is that weird persisting rumor about her, which, yeah, whatever, man. Show up to set with your fucking Marcus Nispel tome of demands that you have. When you look like Tyra Banks, you can do whatever the fuck you want, man. But yes, anyway, she's making some sort of really high-end drink here and misses what's going on. Part of the story we haven't gotten to yet is that Sarah, our lead, is internet friends with Miles Barton, who goes by Deckard.
Not Zach Braff, and also not the guy from Star Trek The Motion Picture.
He's also, and this is a shout out to Ian from 616 Entertainment. It's a YouTube channel I've plugged many times before on here that does historical retrospective pieces on video games like Mortal Kombat. He's done retrospectives on several horror franchises, and one of them is Halloween. On this episode, he would correct himself every time. He would say Deckard, not Decker, which was like Tim Heidecker's alternate personality that was a movie star. And so I laugh about that every time I see it. But so she's like texting with him, and he's at a Halloween party because it is Halloween after all. He and his buddy, Deckard is okay. His buddy has a bit of a, his Halloween costume could be canceled. I'll just say that because they are Vincent and Jules from Pulp Fiction, because this is a Miramax picture after all. And Deckard plays John Travolta, and the other guy is a white guy. So, do with that what you will. But they do have a line, which I wonder who put this in the movie. They say, do you think people are going to know that we're from Pulp Fiction?
It's quite a move to have a titular line that doesn't apply to your movie. Nobody says Halloween Resurrection here.
God, I'm just imagining Busta. The fuck is some kind of Halloween Resurrection?
I have to amend my joke, Alex, by the way, because all this Deckard name discussion, really, he is probably, because he's a nerd, he is Deckard after the Harrison Ford character in Blade Runner, right? That has to be it.
Yeah, I think they even call something out like that. But yeah, that would have to be the case.
So many layers.
Because he is, yeah, he's an internet nerd, you know? Those are the only people that use the internet were nerds.
He uses Yahoo Chat. That's for normies.
And Yahoo chat rooms do not count. Yes, they do count.
So he finds like the home office at this house where the party's at, and he sets up shop there where he is going to be watching the webcast. During the search, Michael suddenly appears and kills Bill. I don't know which one is Bill. Donna and Jim discover a wall filled with fake corpses and realize that it's a setup for the show.
This happens when they're about to have sex.
Yes, and then Jim is killed by Michael.
Did you feel cheated?
No, the thing to me is like, okay, so what happens here is that they're beginning to have sex in like this prop tunnel, but then they accidentally knock down the wall and find the real tunnel to like where Michael sleeps, where he has like all these dolls and rats and shit torn up. So the people who set up the fake tunnel knew about the real tunnel. They just didn't you think it'd be scarier if they just went into that? But I don't know. Michael shows up and he kills one of them.
Kills the girl, right?
Yes, because he chases her and then fucking impales her on that spike.
And everybody's watching. Oh, this is the Scream 2 opening moment where
yes,
she's dying and crying for help, and everybody, by now there's like a big group watching the webcast, and everybody's just going like, yeah, America.
You know, this movie, there's a sequence here, Julio, I'm not sure if you caught it, but it really makes it keeps you on your toes as a movie goer, and you know, almost to like an Inception level of is reality what I think it is, because there's a character in the room watching the webcast who reacts to the murder, and then in the next scene walks into the room where they're watching the webcast and asks, "What are you guys doing in here?"
I didn't notice. It was my face blindness. All college kids look the same to me.
The main reason this kid was able for me to pick him out easily was he's the actor who played Freebird in Freddy vs. Jason. So there you go. Only the finest filmmaking over at Miramax. Exactly. The party, Deckard and the partygoers witness the murder, but only Deckard realizes it was real. Meanwhile, Freddy enters the house dressed as Michael in order to scare the competitors. He's followed by the real Michael, whom he mistakes as Charlie, and shoos out of the house towards the garage where Nora is. This is the high point of this movie, possibly the franchise of Halloween, in which Busta Rhymes tells Michael Myers to skedaddle out of his own home. He uses the word skedaddle. He says, "Go on, skedaddle."
So this is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's never happened before. It will never happen again. Somebody just kind of yells at Michael, just yells him into submission. Michael doesn't attack him. He just kind of turns around and walks away sheepishly. What is the explanation? There's so much to chew on there.
It's also weird hearing someone like talk in a Michael mask.
Maybe that's what freaked him out.
Yeah. He thought he was looking in a mirror. He's like, I don't understand. I'm just going to go find someone else to kill in the meantime. I'll get back to you, Busta Rhymes. When Rudy, Sarah, and Jim find Freddy in Michael's costume, he reveals the scheme and begs them to cooperate, telling them that they will be paid well if the show works out. After Freddy leaves, the trio decides to gather up the rest and leave. Jim discovers Bill's corpse, and Michael decapitates her in front of Rudy, Sarah, and Jim, who soon realize that it isn't Freddy. Michael proceeds to kill Jim and Rudy before chasing Sarah upstairs. I think this is the only movie where Michael decapitates somebody.
I mean, he had just been decapitated in the previous movies, so maybe he just absorbed that move. He leveled up and gained a new ability.
Locking herself in a bedroom, Sarah begs Deckard to help her. As the partygoers realize that all the murders are real, Deckard begins to message Sarah Michael's location to help her avoid him. Sarah runs into Freddy just as Michael finds them and stabs the latter. I'll come back to that in just a second, because during this like escape, it's a classic, Michael, any fucking slasher, honestly, where you're running and, you have to go to different points of the house to hide out, and then you'll end up on the roof at some point. The biggest difference here is that it's like this guided chase where she's getting told to go, and then she hides out the window, and when Michael sticks his head out of it, like on the roof, she fucking soccer kicks him in the head like she's Vanderlei Silva in Pride. I pumped my fist at that because, it's a good little spot there. And then, when she gets back into the house, Busta grabs a hold of her, and it's whispering Busta that says, "We gotta get the fuck out of here." And then Michael appears and stabs him in the shoulder a few times. But from there, Sarah runs into the tunnels and finds an exit leading to the garage where she discovers Nora's body. This is Tyra Banks, who must have had the Hayden Panettiere deal where she didn't die on camera. But this is direct homage to Rosenthal's Halloween 2. Do you remember in that movie where one of the characters is basically just like led to bleed out, and then another character runs into the room and slips on their blood? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Well, it happens in that movie, and it happens in this one too.
Nothing like calling back your own work. It's just how you got a big dick. You're referencing yourself. I thought, Alex, that Tyra Banks was going to save the day because she hadn't shown up in the movie for a while. So I thought that we were being set up for an instance where, you guys have forgotten about this character. Now she's going to come in and, if not kill Michael Myers, at least impair him somehow. But no, I got sucker punched by seeing her dead body. Kind of like as I was sucker punched when American Pie Boy was the first one to die. This movie kept defying my expectations.
Just zigged when you expected it to zag. I appreciate it.
Man.
Michael again arrives and attacks Sarah, but a still living Freddy finds them and fights Michael as an electric fire starts the garage. After electrocuting Michael, all right, that's not what happens here. He zaps him in his balls, and that's how we defeat Michael in this movie, because he falls back as any man getting shocked in the testicles would react, stumbles backwards into these exposed wires, and that's kind of the end of days for him.
Now, before this, the first time the second time, right? The first time they meet, Busta Rhymes yells at Michael Myers, he walks away. The second time they meet, Busta Rhymes shows us that he learned Kung Fu from watching Kung Fu movies and kicks him a few times. That's pretty impressive. And then the third time they meet is right here when the trailer catches fire, and then Michael doesn't make it out of that one. That is... Busta Rhymes had an in with the producer, the screenwriter, whoever, because he gets the most badass moments in this movie.
You think? He bursts through the door like Michael did at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
And he says, "Trick or treat, motherfucker."
He gets a lot of lines that could have been in the trailer. Then they say, "Hey, Mikey, happy Halloween."
Happy fucking Halloween, as he's like fucking Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Seagal, and Tom Cruise all wrapped up into one, carrying Sarah to safety over his shoulder. It's ridiculous.
He also says, doesn't say "burn, motherfucker, burn."
Well, the main thing I remember is he lifts the blanket to check on him after he believes he's dead, and he says, "You crispy now."
Like some chicken fried, motherfucker.
It doesn't have to be a Halloween movie, but why didn't we get a Busta Rhymes spinoff? He just went to haunted houses across America.
It really feels like this character was written for a different movie. I'll just kind of leave it at that. All right, so he shocks him in the dick and balls. Freddy carries Sarah to safety, leaving Michael to die in a burning garage. Later, Freddy and Sarah interviewed by the local news, during which all Sarah says is, "Thank you, Deckard." And he kind of, at home is... I was hoping for the reaction of like when... Randy Quaid sacrifices himself on Independence Day and everyone's like celebrating back in the war room.
But he's already left, right? Because he meets her outside, or doesn't he? Did I just made that up in my mind?
Yeah, I don't remember that. I know they like text each other, and that's the extent of it.
Oh, shit. This movie hit me so hard that I started playing an even happier ending in my head.
The old Homer Simpson. When I get bored with a movie, I just start making one up in my head.
You're right, because she just stays with Busta Rhymes until the end.
Yeah. Freddy attacks the reporter. He's like, "Get the fuck out of here. This here's real." Michael is presumed dead. His body's taken to the morgue. However, as the coroner prepares to examine the body, Michael suddenly awakes. That was the whole fucking deal with all these movies after a while that just became getting pushed out for the sake of being pushed out was Michael could not die at the end.
And I mean, that is not news. That's this entire franchise.
Well, I mean, yes and no. We're not getting into this again. We've talked about this way too many times.
Even the first movie.
In an alternate ending, Sarah requests to look at the body bag seemingly containing Michael's corpse. Upon opening, Michael awakens and chokes Freddy until Sarah kills Michael by stabbing him in the face with an axe.
Oh, Busta Rhymes was not going to have that.
Hell no. Hulk Hogan had the Section 11 subparagraph E, I think was the clause that that was his full creative control clause that he had in his contract. And that's just, I can see Busta Rhymes, just tapping the paper. It's not going to work for me, brother.
It said, how about I look straight at the camera and I tell the audience the moral of the story?
Cameras are the real enemy, man.
They tell me that she took the mask off in that alternate ending, and it's the guy from American Pie.
Oh, I was gonna say it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Even better. Look, Alex, you can complain about many things here, but you can't tell me that they were not onto something with the whole an audience watching the horror chase or whatever happening, and then make it interactive. Like, I don't think I've seen it in any other horror movie since. Am I forgetting like a big instance of this happening? Because it almost feels like a no-brainer that you would do it again, right? And you would refine it as technology evolves and all that. Like the idea that there's a killer in the house, and then there's somebody or many people watching that and providing the person in the house, like the potential victim, like information so that they can just move. Like that's pretty captivating as a cat and mouse version of the story. And we get to see a little bit of that. Like, it's like maybe 10 minutes of this movie, but that was one of the most interesting parts for me, when you just got to see that innovation in technology suddenly merging with your standard Halloween slasher.
You'd think this premise or this idea would be used for good more often than it actually has. I'm a huge fan. I think you are too. The Unfriended movies.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
those are fucking awesome. It's not the exact same thing, obviously. That movie has about like a bit of witchcraft and lore you have to buy into. But I've said lore like 30 times on this podcast. I'm sorry. That's what happens when I talk about wrestling with people. That's a word that people use seriously, and it makes them sound ridiculous when it comes to wrestling. So I make sure to always inject that in a very facetious way. Anyway, yeah, I get your point. You would think there would be a way to do this, but honestly, and we'll talk about this more in Real Talk, that ain't a Michael Myers thing, man. You could do that. I'm surprised they never tried this shit with Jason. Instead, they just put him in space. But the idea of
just skipped straight to space.
Yeah, the internet, that shit ain't gonna last. Put him in space. So yes, I agree with you. I think there were some interesting approaches taken to this that probably could have been better served. Man, a Freddy Krueger movie like this that involves like people trying to force each other and help each other stay awake and shit, and then seeing the outside perspective of, they're seeing like people, like the chick in the first one, it gets dragged around the room and stuff, and that's on the internet and people don't know what's real and what's not. I think what I'm saying is there's a way this idea could have worked, but I don't think that ever could have been in a Halloween movie, just with the way the Michael Myers character is formulated.
Well, maybe the next one, now that it's ended for good, then maybe the next one can be Halloween Online. Dun, 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 dun.
You've got death.
Yes.
There is a part in this where like the connection gets knocked for a second, and it's like that dial-up noise that made me laugh. For anyone, there's people listening to this that are so young that probably never even had dial-up. There's no way you could live stream anything with a dial-up connection. You have to wait 5 minutes to fucking see a photo. So
just like a collection of stills separated by minutes.
And then just being like, I think that was real. All right, Julio. We certainly, to no one's surprise, had a lot of fun here with Halloween Resurrection in our Contrarians Corner segment. I do believe, though, we're ready to roll this along to Real Talk.
Let's do that.